For plebs, by plebs, dropping the Bitcoin only signal. Pleb Underground. Welcome everyone to the Pleb Underground.
Pleb Underground, episode 46. This week we've seen scammers getting busted for their tricks. Here once again, but back from being the host, Saturday night by the Wales coast. Deliberate, not a plan B. He who sails most. One day retire and take it easy, like the Wales coast. I write like an addict, always looking for the next line. You know it's anything but when she says that she's fine. How about this time we explore links to Tether? Bitfinex's on the float like a feather. Adam's backed by the guys who made Keat. It's not infrequent that he trades in a tweet. These guys are flushed like a geyser. Liquid in public like you surprised her. CTO is the POW. Low time preference for the win. Volcano bonds still not dealing. My words are right like a clock that's broken. Twice a day I hear the words I've bespoken. Sometimes I trip, ideas be croaking. Multiple hops like the lightning soaking. I criticize in public, ideas need poking. Fast cars throttled, girls need choking. Learn to fight, different stances. Rhyming's tight, different stanzas. Training with the silent lamb. Bitcoin's kosher, but it's time to go ham. Shitcoins all built on lies and deceit. Can't just delete all of your history. Someone kept the receipt. It's your Bitcoin they desire. No smoke without fire. Scammers get revealed. On-chain sleuth. Zach XBT smokes them in public like they're proof. Northern Lights, more fire from the booth. Nothing to slow it like a retardant. More ego death than Jeff Booth. When the fire inside burns through the roof, save yourself. Use your hero, knowledge, truth.
Walton, that was absolutely awesome. And guys, joining us today, we've got fellow Bitcoiner and pleb, and he is a awesome contributor to the Pleb Underground. Got to check him out. DNComply, man. Thank you so much for joining us on the Pleb Underground.
Oh, I'm thrilled and honored to be here with you guys. And gosh, what a blast this is going to be. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.
Cheers.
Absolutely. All right. We're going to move on over to the numbers.
Yeah, the numbers, of course, brought to us by Timechain Stats and Timechain Calendar. Phil, how are the numbers this week?
That's right, guys. We're changing it up. We're going to show you timechainstats.com. Don't forget to check him out. Ant is an awesome programmer. Makes some really nice tools, great stats. Here we go. At the time of this recording, the block height is 798,697. The total public Lightning capacity, 4,932.4. Moscow time, 33:18. And look at this, Walton. This is part of the new set of numbers that we've added. The fastest fee, 22.
That's gone up a bit. What's going on? Are there shitcoiners doing ordinal stuff again? What's going on, Phil?
I don't know, man. I don't know, but it's still really not that bad. It's really not that bad.
No, I remember, I remember in the early PlebNet days, April 2021, I FOMO'd on opening a Lightning transaction and paid a 3-figure sats per VBIT fee. Something like it was I think overall it's like 20,000 sats or something to open a Lightning channel. Kind of crazy, but yeah.
Well, look,
I think I still have the channel open, so it's like, you know.
I gotta open a channel with you. My node is garbage. I only have one channel open.
Yeah, I tanked my node again. I realized I logged in. I was like, wait a second, what's going on? Oh, it hasn't downloaded any blocks for a month. Oh, it's all right. I'll just speak to some pleb and they'll help me out. And after an hour of some CLI stuff, it's now downloading blocks again. I'm sure we're good.
Very nice.
But
all right. Let's take a look at some.
It's funny how these things go. It's like you should be running a node, but it does require some responsibility. It does require some learning. But there are also some very nice people out there who will help you if you fuck things up a little bit. At times, not everything is fixable, but some people will help you try.
Yes. DNComply. Do you run a node?
I have a very unusual lifestyle. The short answer is no, but the long answer is I have a very unusual lifestyle in that I travel at least 10 months a year. And wow. I just can't I am living out.
It sounds like you should run a node using something like Voltage, which you can run it in the cloud, essentially.
I think I could, but I only have so much time and I do other things. And it's like, I just think that my mental energy, since I'm good at explaining things, is better spent explaining things than doing CLI stuff and trying to.
That's fair enough. I think also Zeus, recently, I think there was an update I heard from Bitcoin Park this week that Zeus, which you can already use as like a kind of Lightning channel management mobile app and Lightning wallet, you can now essentially use it without a node, or rather that essentially it runs some sort of prune node on the phone. Could be interesting.
Let's take a look at, we're going to switch gears and take a look at some number stuff, because Walton, you posted a link that I got to tell you, I took a look at a few times. I don't really understand it, and hopefully you could shed some light on this. All right, let's start off with your link, and then we'll dive into mine. Here we go. All right, Walton. This is
so basically Adam back sharing,
what's going on here?
He's sharing how much cash Swiss people hold, which I thought seemed like quite a lot. It's like each person holds about on average, $11,000 in cash. That's quite a lot of actual physical cash, I think. And they break it down. They've got like amount in certain notes. So they have $1,000 Swiss franc notes, which is about $1,100. And there are 48.3 million of those in circulation. So that alone is 48.3 billion Swiss francs that are just in 1,000 Swiss franc notes. But in total, the Swiss hold about $87 billion. Sorry, 87 billion Swiss francs, which is it says 1.1. So it's about 95, bit more than $95 billion in cash. It's quite a lot of cash.
Why do you think this is significant? I'm just like,
the Swiss have always held gold, right?
Representative of, right?
I think the Swiss have always held gold, so that they've always kind of had this nature of holding any sort of asset that they can trade with, rather than having it custodied, right? They custodied everyone else's stuff. They don't. You know.
Okay.
I don't know. I think it's pretty some sort of cultural thing. Like the Swiss is, I believe Switzerland is one place in Europe where there are pretty kind of pro-gun laws. Quite rare in Europe.
I like that. No, because
they have kind of some different, the kind of citadel kind of style culture. They do have a wealth tax though, so. Trade-offs.
It's an interesting point that they custody it themselves. Very.
But I think maybe I think I might just answer my own question here. Maybe it's because of the wealth tax that they hold a bunch of cash, guys.
Maybe, right? Again, we're not better than our incentives, you know.
So anyway, the point.
Okay.
I thought some interesting numbers.
I like
interesting numbers.
No, I do like it. I appreciate it. All right, moving on. Let's take a look. We got another tweet here. This is a tweet out of Oliver L. Velez, and I'm going to ask each of you guys what you think. So in 2011, a $300,000 house cost 30 million BTC. In 2016, that same house was only 312 BTC. 2021, it only cost 4.3 Bitcoin. And in 2026, that $300,000 house will cost only blank. Now, before we answer this question, I thought that this was hilarious because this guy responds back and goes, bro, what's a $300,000?
Yeah, right.
So, all right. So we're going to start off with DNComply. Just, to have some fun with the guessing game. What do you think? 2026, a $300,000 house. How many Bitcoin?
Well, it depends if we have financial contagion and everything implodes, then it's a tenth of a Bitcoin. Or, it all depends on that. There's basically two possible answers. Do we have an economic monetary system implosion or not? And so unless you answer that question, I can't answer the original question. So, but I think unfortunately, it's really, now I'm kind of paraphrasing Larry Lepard or whatever, but I think it's really hard to imagine them able to kick the can down the road another 3 years. So I'm pessimistic about the value of houses in fiat, and very optimistic about value of houses in Bitcoin.
You're a Bitcoiner, sir.
I agree with our guest.
Walton?
I think this tweet is the midwit tweet of the week. Clearly, dollars is a terrible unit of account. If you look at the last 30 years, certainly in like where I live, 30 years ago would get you maybe like a 5-bedroom detached house with like an acre of land, and today might get you a very nice 1-bedroom flat or a terrible 2-bedroom place that's not detached, like like a terraced house, if which probably doesn't mean anything to people in the States, but like essentially like houses where it's all like, joined up. There's no like no you wouldn't have like kind of privacy. You wouldn't have like
row houses.
What $300,000 buys you in real estate is drastically decreasing, which is why we all Bitcoin, right? Because the house prices go like this and salaries go like this, and so we go Bitcoin.
Are you suggesting?
I just got it. May I jump in here? Because what Walton just said about unit of account was just so crucial. I mean, the question being asked does not get into what's your unit of account, and that's really the main question. So that's all I have to say. I mean,
isn't it crazy that like in your head, a million used to be like a shit ton of money that you think like, oh, if I got $1 million, I could have the house of my dreams and stables and tennis courts and pool and all this kind of money. And now it's like, you're probably getting like a really nice 3-bed place that's detached, maybe 4-bed in like a nice area, like no fancy extra bits, small garden, like mini mansion, right? Like, but you're not. It's disgusting, kind of what's happened to that kind of like that it fucks with like so much of what you're trying to do if you have a unit of account that's changing, right? And people don't realize that's what's happening. They just see everything like doing weird shifts relative to that.
In the tweeter's defense, his numbers were from 2021. So I mean, like $300,000 was the average USD price in 2021. So, just kind of taking that into perspective. But so Walton, I don't know if I got an answer out of that. What do you think the average house is going to cost in BTC in 2026? I didn't give my answer either. I'm just checking this.
One,
because I have no idea.
One.
Okay. So the numbers are, I don't know if they're so bullish today. Bullish, bearish, I don't know.
Which is why I think like millennials, like as millennials and Zoomers, like you really need to get stacking like as fast as you can, because I do think it's like basically the only way you're going to be able to afford to buy a house one day. Like, if you really get stacking for, I don't know, 3-4 years and then wait 2 cycles, you can probably afford to buy a house. But like, you really need you need to get cracking.
All right, so I'm going to agree with you, Walton. I'm gonna say around 1. I don't know if we're bulls, if we're bears. Who knows, guys?
To the nearest like order of 10. It's not going to be 0.1 and it's not going to be 10. Like what one is the right order of magnitude. Like, is it going to be 0.5? Is it going to be 2? I don't know. Like, but 1 is about right.
Guys,
but
what do you
larger
think?
Perspective is who wants a house in the first place? I mean, that's no longer how I want to be storing my value. I don't care. I'd rather not go through the hassle of ownership and closing costs and dealing with real estate agents, God forbid. Who needs that nonsense when you can just buy Bitcoin?
That's when Bitcoin moons, is when people go, oh, actually, real estate is terrible collateral. It's just like, falling down bricks and stuff and wood and like, and requires a load of maintenance. Like, actually, Bitcoin is the best collateral. And when that shifts kind of public opinion, you're going to see a huge jump in price.
Absolutely.
Guys, what do you think? Let us know. Put it in the comments of the show. What do you think? Is it a shitcoin? Real estate is shitcoin? How much is a house, the average house, going to cost in 2026? Let us know. That's right, Walton. Fuckshitcoins.com. Guys, this wraps up the numbers. And we're going to move on over to the Fireside Chat. The Fireside Chat is brought to you by CypherSafe. Check them out, cyphersafe.io. Paper is dead. You can't trust it to store your seed. Check out the Cypher Grid. It comes complete with a punch tool, virtually indestructible. Check them out at cyphersafe.io. If you appreciate high-quality Bitcoin art, check out the Bitcoin Rolo Triangle physical Bitcoin art made of 100% titanium, 16 ounces, made by a fellow Bitcoiner. You could see the absolutely beautiful craftsmanship. CypherSafe.io. Check it out, the Bitcoin Rolo Triangle. Joining us today, as you know, we've got fellow Bitcoiner and pleb and contributor to PlebUnderground, DNComply. DNComply, that's it, man. You're in the hot seat, and we're going to ask you all the tough questions, like, tell us about your rabbit hole story. What got you into Bitcoin? Let's start off.
Well, I guess I started hearing about Bitcoin around 2013, and I was kind of had my eye on it, but didn't really understand what made it special, apart from just some intuition that I would eventually get some. And then I flew out to Maui, where I had lived for a few years, and I was hanging out there for a couple of months, and one afternoon I just smoked a joint, and I was hanging out and thinking, well, what am I going to do now? And I popped into my head, I think I'll listen to a Rogan podcast. And so I looked at the last 10 episodes from Rogan, and he had on the one that popped out to me was he had on this guy with this crazy name. It was Andreas Antonopoulos. I was like, what the hell? So just on the strength of like this incredibly unusual name, I listened to him interviewing Andreas. And the thing was, I'm an early Gen Xer, and back when I was in high school in my junior year, around 1984 or whatever, senior year, I read The Wealth of Nations, and I read Das Kapital, and this was when Reagan was finishing his first term and spending like a drunken sailor.
Reaganomics.
And it was like just a confluence of things that was like, holy crap, I could just see that, like, we were on a path, the United States was on a path that was just unsustainable. And the question was just, how long is this going to last? And I had a background, I've been giving thought to macroeconomics, since the early 80s. And, so I guess the pump was already primed when I heard Andreas talking about, fiat currency and how Bitcoin worked. I had enough of background. I had a Commodore 64, by my senior year of high school, and did some coding. And, in the late 90s, I read about public key encryption, and, kind of knew the basics of that. So, I could understand how you could write a script that was based on, encryption, and how that could generate tokens, like all of that. Just, even though I couldn't, create any of that, I could understand how all of that worked, and how all of that could remedy a fiat currency based system. So it's just like, without being an expert on economics, or an expert on programming, or cyberpunk, or an expert on cryptography, I knew enough about those areas that everything made sense, like, immediately. And by the end of the podcast, I was, I think I turned 50 that year, but by the end of that podcast, I was like, I could put my life savings into Bitcoin. Like, that seems like a pretty good thing. So, I could really, I understand, and I'm only half kidding. Like, I could see by the end of it, I could really understand what VJ said in his bullish case for Bitcoin, that this was like a massively asymmetric bet. That I kind of intuitively felt that there was only a 30% chance that Bitcoin would fail, you know, immediately. Like I could just, it had been working for 5 years. And I could see that if this was not going to fail, and if I could buy 1/millionth of the supply of this for about $6,000, and there's 8 billion people on Earth, like a relatively small amount of money gets me into whale territory very, very quickly. And it's just like, it just seemed like a complete no-brainer bet. And I'm proud to say that, I bought my first Bitcoin at the beginning of 2015. When I tried buying it when it was a little over 300, and Coinbase kept, every time I purchased it, I like 4 days later, Coinbase would email me and said, your purchase didn't go through. And I'd be like, and then like I would lose a week, but meanwhile, Bitcoin was dropping and dropping. And so I think my cost basis for, for essentially my life savings was around $270 a coin. And naturally, by the time I finished purchasing, like the day I bought my last coin, 4 hours later, Bitcoin dropped to $180, and I just, I just spent the last of my money on Bitcoin, and Bitcoin dropped another $50, and then I was underwater for about a year. But I didn't care. I didn't care. Remember when it stayed at $233 for about?
No, because I'm a 2018er, so like I don't remember 3-figure prices. So go fuck yourself, sir. But congratulations, well done.
I was there, sir.
It stayed at $233 for about a year, and at that point, I was like, if I'm right, I'm right, and I'm gonna really do well. But at that point, as I had more money come in, I bought some silver, because I knew that I was, I knew that I was solidly exposed, and if Bitcoin failed, I needed to own something that was scarce. So, what's that?
What?
I said lol, because like Bitcoin is actually provably independently verifiably scarce. Silver, not so much, sir. Not so much.
Well, no, but I mean, silver, I don't quite agree in the sense that gold and silver, precious metals are tangible, and they're always going to be scarce, even though they're not finite. I think, we can't discount the fact that maybe there will be some fundamental breakthrough in quantum computing, or some terrible bug that nobody has seen until now. Like there's always going to be some minute chance that Bitcoin fails. And I think, to be honest, we have to admit that. Now, I think
in that case, you want bullets, not precious metals. But
well, yeah, pluma no plata, pluma no plata. So yeah, I understand that, but I think that, the Lindy effect, every year, every month that Bitcoin continues to survive makes it more likely that Bitcoin will survive over the long term. But as of late 2015, after I had purchased a significant amount of Bitcoin, I knew I was either set for life or going to have nothing. So I spent some of my cash on some of my income on silver, because either way, I want something that's scarce.
Did you say some of your income rather than some of your, like, you didn't sell Bitcoin to do it?
Oh no, the only Bitcoin
that's marginally better then, I guess.
No, the only Bitcoin. No, but I
rabbit hole story, Walton.
Yeah, it's a shit coin. It's a shit coin. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, do I own a little bit of like precious metal jewelry? Tiny bits, but like, I'm not trying to like store wealth. It's like it's a there's sentimental values to these things. Does that make me mean that I'm not 100% Bitcoin? I guess you could argue that, but I'm pretty more than 100% Bitcoin because fuck shit coins and fuck fiat and yeah. Like, I don't own anything but Bitcoin. And neither does anyone else, really, because what else can you truly own? All physical possessions are secured by violence. And the state has a monopoly on violence from a legal perspective. And so, therefore, you are essentially, you don't own anything. The state, helps you to own all physical possessions.
All right.
Or they don't, right? Like they're stopping to prosecute and just not even like investigating, burglaries and petty thefts and this sort of thing all over the Western world. So, if the state isn't actually securing property rights, like what are they doing?
Walton's dropping truth bombs, but we need to get back to DNComply's story here.
Okay.
But you're absolutely right, Walton. This is all true.
6102.
All right, so 6102 exactly. So all right, so DNComply. So here you are. It's 2015. You pretty much know that you're either set for life or it's going to zero. You for some reason decided to get some silver, which is the first loser, and that's okay. That's okay, to each their own. And so yeah, so we know that you just have better bags than us. Continue.
And then I just kind of spent several years hanging out. I mean, I have writing skills, but I do other things, and I didn't really feel like I didn't feel any sort of calling to contribute to the Bitcoin world other than orange pilling my friends and family, who are very much bifurcated between the people who listened to me and the people who didn't. And but I've stayed friends with, and I haven't lost any friendships over this, but I'm really happy to say that like I was dating a woman at the time, and or a few months after that I started dating a woman, and she was like $300,000 or $400,000 in debt. Because she had taken on a huge amount of student loan debt. And as you know, that can't really be discharged. And I was talking to her, one day early in our relationship, and I was like, if I were you, I'd buy some Bitcoin. And as deeply in debt as she was, she listened to me, and I wasn't sure that Bitcoin was going to succeed, and she was already horribly in debt. But I said, I think you should buy 10 coins, and she did. And now her Bitcoin holdings are worth way more than her student debt from a $2,300 investment. So that was pretty cool.
Where was Michael? Where was Michael? Why didn't you call me up, dude? Like, hey, come on, man.
You weren't dating me. So sorry.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Like, I guess there's trade-offs to everything, right?
Yeah, it wouldn't have been worth it though. So
DNComply. I think you said you touched on something very important. You didn't feel the need necessarily or the desire to contribute. But then this year you hit us up, PlebUnderground, and wanted to put together an article, and you did, and it's by far some of the most like I think one of the most kind of like noob friendly articles that we've ever had, that is kind of like all encompassing. And so why don't you so what made you have the change of heart?
Well, what happened, I think, was that, I read VJ's bullish case for Bitcoin after it came out, and I thought it was magnificent. I still think it's one of the best pieces of Bitcoin writing. Like, it's just better written than 98% of the Bitcoin stuff I've ever seen. And for a while, that was I think we all need a default recommendation. When we're talking to a newbie, what are we recommending? Like, you shouldn't be coming up with that recommendation on the spot. You should already know what your default recommendation is. And for a while, I felt like, God, bullish case for Bitcoin is so frigging good. That's my default recommendation. But then as time, then the thing got a little dated, and, prices change and circumstances change, and we're the block size wars in the rear view mirror, and then, fundamentally, like, really the main thing that essay does is it shows you that Bitcoin is a great investment, but it doesn't teach you really what Bitcoin is and some of the fundamentals about how it works. And it also doesn't warn you adequately or really at all about scammers and the kind of things you need to look out for to hold on to your Bitcoin, including your own incompetence. So I really wanted to cover not just why Bitcoin was a fantastic investment, but to give you, to give a newbie a sufficient background to really start understanding it in the context of the fiat system and why this is radically different. And then advice that would keep you away from the jaws of the Alex Mashinskys of the world. So, without doxing myself, I have a long history as I started out in life as a tech writer, and and I've done every kind of writing. I've published well over 1 million words, but writing introductions is just a uniquely, brutally challenging thing. And that's why there really, I don't think, has been an essay you could read in an hour to bring you up to speed. And as we got into 2019, 2020, 2021, I had friends saying, you should write something. I was like, nah. But I became increasingly realizing that I no longer had a default recommendation for newbies that I was happy with. There was just nothing I could recommend to, to a friend or family member where I could just unambiguously say, hey, read this and you'll really know what's up. And I was like, oh God, if I can't even find something that I'm happy making my default recommendation, oh shit, I got to write this myself, and luckily I have the skills to do it. Now there's 10,000 people who know more about Bitcoin than me from a technical perspective, but I think just like you wouldn't want, a Nobel Prize winning physicist to teach kindergarten, the kind of people who really have the Matt Odell skill set on the tech side, or the, Lynn Alden skills on the economic side, they're not really the people you'd want to try to explain this for somebody's first hour, somebody who doesn't even know what macroeconomics means. And so that's kind of what I did. I just kind of jumped in and offered elementary education in every important aspect of Bitcoin in something you could read in 1 hour. And I should finish this just by saying that this was I think the best piece of writing I've done in my entire life. And even though you can read this piece in an hour, that took me 7 weeks of full-time work. And I'm somebody who can easily write 2,000 words a day, but introductions are brutal. So,
writing concisely is more hard work, right? You have to be more selective with your words.
Yeah, it's just like there's a proficiency you need as a writer to write an introduction that in most respects I think is harder than fiction, harder than essays, harder than just about any genre of writing you
Because
can
you have
take
to
on.
understand it so thoroughly to write it in such a concise way. You're summarizing it, like you're trying to distill it down, and you have to really grasp it to be able to write it. It's often why like for a scientific paper, they write the abstract at the end, not the beginning, because you need to
here's what we've learned, and most of it is just like having the discipline to know what is not essential. Like I've heard, a lot of the Bitcoin introductions will mention or go into some detail about the white paper or the Byzantine generals problem. It's like, Jesus, you can't talk about the white paper. The white paper is not the starting point to learn about Bitcoin.
I'm convinced it's people patting themselves on the back. People are like, oh yeah, so I heard about Bitcoin and then I read the white paper and I was like, yeah, I'm adopting it now. Bull fucking shit. You're not orange washing, right? But you're intellectual washing your Bitcoin past. Most people who say that, you're fucking liars, and you know it, Like I get it. At some point, you read the white paper and you're like, you admire its beauty and simplicity and etc. But you have to appreciate a whole bunch before you can actually appreciate the white paper. If you're most people, maybe there's a couple of programs or whatever that read it first, but most people aren't reading that paper and then going, I'm really getting Bitcoin. I have a few questions for you, sir.
Absolutely.
So I believe Bitcoin books or Bitcoin paid books are a scam. I don't think anyone needs to read a Bitcoin book to understand Bitcoin. I think one of the reasons that is because you can just talk to people in Bitcoin about the ideas. You don't need to read the printed materials, and certainly not the paid printed materials. Like education in Bitcoin is very, what's the word? It should be decentralized. It should be personal. And if you're trying to give people Bitcoin education, you're doing it the wrong way around. They need to be reaching to you for Bitcoin education. You need to sufficiently stimulate their curiosity such that the education is on them. You're doing it wrong if you're trying to orange pill people and force Bitcoin into them. You need to trigger them to come to you. It doesn't work the other way around. Now, it might be that you want to kind of poke them enough to get them to do that, but I think the better way to do is to really talk about the problem. I once orange pilled like a group of people in a 2-hour period, and the first 90 minutes I just talked about inflation. I looked at M2 global money supply and all these sorts of things. Like what's driving inflation, what is inflation, what are the effects of it, and then eventually people start going, well, that's not sustainable, what do we do? And then you start talking about Bitcoin. But they've really got to grasp the problem of kind of unsustainable time theft or unsustainable wealth dilution or whatever you want to call it, and to actually appreciate the solution. I think people who already understand, I guess, scarcity concepts, sometimes those people can be harder. And I think, maybe say, for example, trying to get all the gold people, gold hodlers to convert to Bitcoin, they may not get it. Like you shouldn't be trying to kind of convert a particular group. You should be, I guess, I actually think people should stop orange pilling. I think you should just start using it to empower yourself, build a better life, start doing cool shit, and then people ask, hey, how come you're doing all this cool shit? And you just say Bitcoin and fuck off. And I think that's how actually we need to orange pill the world. We need to make Bitcoin sexy again. Thank you.
Was there a question in there?
I don't know. Okay, so the question is,
What's the question?
The question is do you agree that individuals orange pill themselves? Do you think that actually you can preach Bitcoin, or do you actually think that it needs to be the other way around, where sufficient curiosity is stimulated in some individual, and then they really take it on themselves and then start orange pilling themselves by slowly or maybe quickly going through the various criticisms that they have in an intellectually what's the word? Intellectually sound way, intellectually honest way. Like, it's only once they start being intellectually honest. They're not trying to do gotchas with their conversation with you about Bitcoin. It's only when they start asking these questions that I think they orange pill themselves. Do you agree, or do you think we can truly orange pill other people?
I think the essence of what you are getting at here is perhaps I think you're taking a position that that if you actively, I think there's the dichotomy between active versus passive, and I think that you're kind of from the camp that just wants to leave it up to people to just discover this cool thing, and you don't have to go ramming stuff down somebody's throat. And that's true to an extent, but I also think that, you know, for example, when I was talking to my girlfriend way back when, you know, I
and you were ramming something down her throat.
I was saying, you know, oh, you have $400,000 of student debt. Let me tell you about Bitcoin and why I think this might be your quickest way out of financial problems and why it's an asymmetric bet. So and then she, you know, once I explained things to her, she seized the initiative and started orange pilling herself. But I think there's an active component and a passive component to getting people on board. And it's certainly not, you know, that cartoon, you know, the classic cartoon of the 15 urinals lined up and the guy walks down to the, you know, to the only, you know, to the urinal right next to the only other person in the room and says, I'm a Bitcoiner. You know, we don't need that kind of orange pilling. But I think, you know, I think that, you know, if you are socially skilled and have friends and treat them in a loving way, and you know, you're just a good person in life, a lot of people are going to want to know what you're up to, and they're going to want to be, you know, just finding out about what you're doing, and then you can just, you know, give them your default recommendation. But I think there should be some active recruitment, like, hey, you know, like there's two big messages that I try to give to people, like independent of me explaining Bitcoin to them. There's two very, very simple messages that I just throw out to people at every opportunity. Number one, Bitcoin is worth 1 hour of your time. Like if you haven't looked into it yet, you need to spend an hour doing it. And you know, my default recommendation in a self-serving way happens to be my essay, but whatever your default recommendation is, make that default recommendation. And then the second point I try to make to everybody is that get off zero. And that's kind of all I have to say. And either you're listening or you're not, but those are my two messages, and they can be expressed in about 2 minutes of time. And then if you have, you know, if you want to talk to me personally about Jerome Powell or, you know, what the fuck happened in, you know, 1971 or whatever.
That's a great one site. If actually like that's one I used to use at some point. Yeah. At some point I liked lopp.net, but I don't like that guy anymore, so I can't recommend it. And it really pisses me off that I can't recommend the site. Like, it really annoys me. Like like, fuck shitcoins and fuck Casa, but like it's frustrating, isn't it? When it's like there's credible. I mean, I guess you could say he was a shitcoiner for a while, but like with Grin and stuff. But like, I don't know where there's. I don't know. It's annoying when there's kind of respectable Bitcoin people whose work you admire, and then they get corrupted, and then it's like you don't really feel like you can share, but you know, their stuff anymore, because what happens if there's some link to some of their shitcoin stuff? It's like it's been their work has been corrupted by their moves. It's
even worse when they double down. It really is, and Lop unfortunately did double down. And you know what? This is a great segue into us moving over to REKT. So DNComply, man, really appreciate you diving into your rabbit hole story. That was absolutely awesome. And I think you made great points. I mean, Bitcoin is worth 1 hour of your time. That's a very simple thing to tell people, and get off zero, right? Like this was actually a lot of the messaging, the get off zero messaging is what I heard a long time ago, right? Like back in like 2018, 2019, you know? So yeah, very good points. We're going to add a link to your article in the show notes so that everybody can go and take a look at it. And we're actually going to move on over to REKT.
Up next, we have REKT, sponsored by Represent. Represent are a excellent apparel manufacturer based out on the West Coast. They're owned by a Bitcoiner, and they make lots of cool stuff over at representltd.com. For once, I'm actually wearing a shirt that you can actually buy, unlike the really cool one that Phil's wearing this week, and I often wear. Taco Pleb was a unique shirt, but you can get some nice shirts like the one I'm wearing today over at representltd.com. And if you use the code PlebUnderground, you'll get a discount on all of the goodies. Once again, that's representltd.com. Guys, on REKT this week we have a couple of different stories. We talked a little bit earlier about how I guess housing in fiat terms is kind of fucked, and so it's a perfect segue. Actually, one little clip I have here from Ruby up in the East Coast. Let me share this little clip for you guys. Just looking at how housing's changed over the past 30, 40 years. Not just the prices, but also the financing, which I think is interesting. Let's have a look at this.
It's a good one.
Instead of debating boomers of what their housing cost was in 1980 compared to millennials in 2023, let's just look at the past 3 years. So in Florida, there was a home for $320,000 in 2020. That same home is selling for $550,000 today. But let's break that down if you were to buy the house in 2020. If you did a 2.5% interest rate on a $320,000 home, your payment would only be $2,200 a month, and you would need to make $80,000 a year to qualify for that loan with no debt. Now, fast forward to today. If you bought it in 2023 for $550,000, it's a 7% interest rate, which your payment is now $3,800, where you would need to make $130,000 a year with no debts to afford that house. This just happened over the past 3 years. This is not talking about the 1980s. This is just the past 3 years. But here's where it gets like, ugh. If you kept that $30,000 loan, if you bought it in 2020, you would end up spending $146,000 over 30 years on interest. That same home, if you bought it in 2023 and never refinanced and just kept it, it would cost you $789,000 in interest over the course.
So I'm going to pause it there. Yeah, not even looking over the last 30, 40 years. Actually, just looking over the last 3 years. So what does that $300,000 house, well, actually now it's $550,000. And yeah, the interest rates are spiking. And look, the total interest repayable will be more than the cost of the home. For those of you that don't know, just a 2% interest rate would actually mean that the banks make something like 60% over a 25, 30-year period back on you. And so 7%, they're then starting to make some serious money with the compounding of the interest, right? Housing, it's kind of wrecked.
Yeah, it kind of is. And it's interesting because we were talking about this with DNComply before the show. The other piece that I wanted to mention about this, right, is that he's giving rates that, like, you need to have at least a 700 in the US anyways. You need to have like at least like a 730, 740 credit score
to get it, right?
Exactly. So the reality is that those rates. Like the average person isn't even getting those rates. So those numbers that he gave were even, in my opinion, slightly rosy, which is not good. Definitely not good. DNComply, what are your thoughts on this, man? Because we definitely had an interesting conversation about housing before.
Well, I think since the Volcker era, there's been a trend underlying both bonds and housing that has made both of those assets just wonderfully, reliably profitable investments. And now we are at this stage where JPO is just jerking things up and down, and there's no telling where things are going to go next, and all stability has been kicked out. So like I think the things that have for 40 years now have made bonds and houses just reliably profitable and reliably something any monkey could make money off of, that's no longer there. So that's one thing I have to say.
Right,
Number
now
two,
the only reliable bond is James.
yes, exactly. The other thing I have to say is that well, couple more things, but the presentation we just saw, just from a teaching standpoint, that was just put together beautifully. I mean, that was such a clear and concise explanation. And then really the third thing I have to say is that everything he said, as Coin Icarus was saying, is frankly a bit of an understatement. And imagine the horror if you realize that commercial real estate is 10 times worse. Like, and so that's going to be the thing that really turns the apple, as if home prices and a potential collapse of housing prices wasn't enough of a jolt to the economic and financial system. You wait to see what's coming when when we see like the entire commercial real estate sector just go into the toilet. And I don't see any way that doesn't happen.
I had an interesting chat on that this week. I shared a statistic, it was last weekend, with some people at the beach retreat that I'd heard, I think a couple of weeks ago, supposedly 90% of commercial real estate in Manhattan has zero equity. What that means is, of all of these giant office blocks that developers and funds and all this sort of, all these people own, that they then they own, but they have a lot of debt on it. They've actually now in 90% of the properties, there is more debt than the value of the property. And so essentially the owner of that property doesn't own anything but more debt than, so they can't sell the property to pay off the debt because it wouldn't pay off the debt. And so there's going to be some weird things happening, especially in commercial real estate in a lot of the big cities. With the pandemic, kind of proved that remote working works, and so a lot of these companies, other than the ones that can kind of force people into the office for compliance reasons and all these sorts of things, a lot of these things, we'll see what's going to happen. It's crazy.
That's right, guys. We're bringing you top-notch fear porn right here. Pleb Underground. Okay, Walton.
Hey, but fortunately, don't worry about the price of housing going up, because actually the whole world's economy is crumbling. And what a better statistic to show this than apparently China's exports. This is year on year in dollar terms. Fell 12.4%. That's about an eighth. An eighth. So China's sales dropped by an eighth. Year on year, and imports by about 7%. So house prices going up, but don't worry, because the world's economy is crumbling.
I've got a stupid question for you. Maybe do you think that this could have anything to do? I guess I would say, do you think that this is maybe a symptom or a reason for them, China, I'm saying, to possibly try to get this BRICS thing together, where they are essentially
it may be that actually the figures are skewed because they're doing some of that sort of stuff. Maybe there isn't, maybe the accounting in dollars isn't working properly because China's dealing in something else. Or I don't know. I don't know how anyone can ever believe any sort of macro numbers. for anything, because there's too many incentives skewed of like,
Yes.
Someone should report something to their boss because it makes them look good or bad, or like there's all these kind of funny like incentives through these things. And then you've got geopolitics on top, which is essentially, a lot of economic war, and what better way to do that than kind of throw out funny numbers and, make other people then make different steps. And do you see what I mean? Like, it's all, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors, and I don't really know. I don't really know what you don't know what any of these numbers are real or not, right? You can't verify these numbers. You can't run a node on China's exports.
Gotta trust them, dude.
So what can you do? Like, you need to go local. You need to make sure that you stay solvent. You need to, orange pill. I think the people that you want to spend money with, you shouldn't try and orange pill everyone. Orange pill businesses where you want to spend money because you want to continue to be able to spend money there. And actually, if they become Bitcoiners, they wouldn't have to keep raising their prices like crazy in the same way that other people will, because they actually have savings, and they're not just having to absorb it all. So yeah, the housing's wrecked, the world economy, or China at least, is wrecked. Terrible things, but fortunately we now get to look at some shitcoiners getting wrecked. And the first lot of shitcoiners are of course the sovereign nation of El Salvador, their beauty pageant, turning out to just be a marketing stunt to sell ordinals. I wonder who's helping them out with that.
The ordinals. Who's helping with that? I mean, it's pretty much BSV. That's
funny, because at the same time, maybe Calvin is like misspending his money, because it seems like he can't afford to pay the same people on Twitter in the same ways, right? Like, you're now getting Whale Chart, who was seemingly like being paid by BSV and saying all sorts of nonsense. Is fighting because they were saying positive things about BSV, and so then this guy said he's selling all his BSV and buying Ripple. Again, all these scammers, they're fickle, aren't they? They have no loyalty. It's all just Weasley kind of stuff. But yeah, is Calvin running out of money to pay people off because he's spending too much money on lawyers for Craig?
I think so, dude. I was not aware of that. I mean, to me, Whale Chart has just been a predominantly BSV, right, shill channel or Twitter account, and this is absolutely hilarious. I mean, dude, I to me, like, that doesn't become any better. So their own account, it's like their own paid marketing is going against them. This is, I mean, don't get me wrong, but this was this was bound to happen. And did you see that bullshit news that Forbes essentially talking up
Forbes crypto patents, talking up BSV or something, yeah,
and talking up Craig's patents, and talking about how, like, Bitcoin development could come to a halt if he starts doing. It's like, what the, like, what?
He may not be the founder of Bitcoin, but, or something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Dude, these guys are so wrecked. It's unbelievable. It's so sad. You look at any freaking metrics, it is just so pathetic. And you know what? I know we shouldn't feel bad, but at the same time, it's just that grift is just so absolutely horrible. That I can't help feel some sympathy for the people who don't do their research and get grifted into trying to buy this cheaper real Bitcoin that is not actually Bitcoin in any way, shape, or form. It's absolutely, it's a fork of a shit fork. Okay, it's a fork of BCH. It's not even a fork of Bitcoin.
Trash SV.
Yeah, it's not even a fork of actual Bitcoin. Anyways, DNComply. Yeah, let's get DNComply's thoughts on this one, though. Like, what do you think about the whole Bcash nightmare? You've been around for a really long time. You saw some stuff. Give us some quick thoughts on this.
Well, I mean, where Bcash and BSV is concerned, it's like, I think one of the first deep things that Bitcoin teaches you, like like I had only spent, 10, 20, 30 hours studying Bitcoin before I got to the point where like any Wall Street Journal article or Forbes article or Barron's article, I could just see from first principles that the reporter had no idea what the fuck he was talking about. And it's like, oh my God, if I could get to the point from 30 hours of study with Bitcoin to see that to see that the emperor has no clothes 90% of the time when the business media is making some kind of pronouncements, where else does this apply? I bet it applies everywhere else if I just knew enough. And so it really was a liberating thing for me because, I could also say that maybe as COVID came around, I became more confident in my ability to assess risk reward. And in the very same way, I could see that the media was just like completely screwing the pooch in terms of their analysis of what we needed to do to protect our health and the health of others. It was just like, yeah, the risk reward seems pretty whacked out to me. And I think that just going down the Bitcoin rabbit hole gave me the confidence to and the firsthand experience to see like the cliche when you're a kid is you can't trust everything you read, but you start realizing like Bitcoin will really teach you that all these talking heads on TV, who's that clown with the Luna tattoo? What's his name? Novogratz. I mean, it's just like, how are they still having Peter Schiff and Novogratz on any kind of television? These people need to be like routed off the island with pitchforks and live out the rest of their lives in Elba or whatever. It's just like how are these people even, why does anybody care what these people have to say after they've completely embarrassed themselves for years and years and years? So anyway, yeah, I mean Bcash, BSV, all this shit, it's all going to implode. But I will not be happy until the dumpsters, the final boss is Ethereum, and that's going to be the happiest day of my life when Ethereum finally implodes under the black hole of greed, stupidity, and lies that have defined that ecosystem ever since it was rolled out with its bullshit pre-mine and everything else. What a bunch of scumbags. Anyway, I think that's all I have to say.
I think it's a state-sponsored distraction away from Bitcoin, right? Like I think I think shitcoins will exist as long as fiat exists. I think I don't know. I don't know. Maybe in 50 years, it's like you've got. I mean, I'm probably not that long. But like at some period of time, maybe there'll be Bitcoin and Ethereum, and then like some fiat on Ethereum or something. I don't know. Like there's gonna be something weird happening over the the next few decades. But I like that you talked about risk reward, because. What do you think the risk reward is of using a large exchange when many of their senior execs quit, especially those in the legal and compliance team? Do you think that's the kind of financial institution where you want to leave anything of value? I think perhaps not. And so yeah, you shouldn't be using Binance anyway, guys. But really, like, you shouldn't be leaving anything on exchange. And this is once again, it's a reminder that not your keys, not your coins. Yeah, you got to have your UTXOs in addresses for which you control the keys. Can
I just say that, like, the ultimate tell, is any exchange that has its own token is reason enough to set your hair on fire and go running to the exit.
I think that's a valid point, and I just want to point out, it's very interesting, right? you've got this very rosy lens that Binance has desperately worked to paint itself for the public. And there's something that I learned in equities as I was, learning about trading stocks. And it's this: there's certain red flags in a company that if you're holding shares, let's say, of that company, right? And there's certain things that happen, certain events. These are the kind of things where, you know what? It might be a good idea to bail and let the dust settle. And one of those things is when the compliance people start to leave, okay? When the compliance people start to leave, that is very bad. Okay, especially after everything has been painted so rosy, and then you started to see some rough waters, and then hold on. Then there's also if the CTO leaves, okay, the CFO, there's certain positions when those people leave. I'm sorry, but those are red flags.
It was a Bitcoin Council of Autism space. I remember November 2021. I'd read a story. I announced in the space that the CFO, I believe, of Celsius had been arrested in Israel under some funny charges. And Magoo said in that space, "That's it. That's the top. Yep. Pack your bags. You can all go home." And he was right. And we had it slid from there, right? But we now see not just the CFO getting arrested, but now finally the big boy himself, Mr. Mashinsky, who me and Good Guy Biker once tore up very nicely on Clubhouse. That was fun. But this guy actually, getting done by the three-letter agency boys, SEC, DOJ, CFTC, and FTC, all suing and charging Celsius and Mashinsky in the past. Now, and that was just yesterday. We're recording on Friday the 14th. And yeah, sorry looking face there, but not as sorry as it should be, because I think there were a whole bunch of people that lost life savings in Celsius, a whole bunch of people that killed themselves because the shame and humiliation of losing everything. And I don't know, these there were real lives and families torn apart by these disgusting people who were running Ponzi's, right? Where does the yield come from? Alan Farrington likes to say, and it comes from the souls of poor people's whose lives have been destroyed, unfortunately. It's disgusting.
Yeah, I think look, obviously this is brutal. And to add to your point, right? The province of Quebec, their pension fund, right? They put people's retirement, we're talking about the government, right? We're talking about a provincial government that put people's, future into that. We're not even talking about an individual. And again, I'm not saying that one of them is worse than the other or anything like that. I'm just saying, to your point, this has affected so many people. And I do agree with you. His face does not look sad enough. Those, you know what? I think that kind of brings up the point. I know that, not every owner of, every company is a narcissist or something like that. I think that there are people out there who genuinely, want to run a business and want to do good things and want to provide value and as a result, right, get paid for it and be profitable for it. But I do think that once you get, for some reason, to a certain level, something happens. And I don't know if it's just people giving into their lower base tendencies, but I think it takes a certain amount of narcissism and sociopathy to do what these people did. And I've heard the other perspective, right? Oh no, it's not, the person isn't evil or something they thought it would work. They thought the business would pick back up. Not to be a dick, but the reality is that if that's what you were relying on, then that means you were scamming all along, right? Because you knew that this was going to fall apart. So you're sitting there banking on a what if? I don't know, man. I can't buy that what happened at Celsius wasn't nefarious. I can't buy that they were trying to do the right thing. And so I just want to finish off by saying this. There's people that somehow are still shilling Celsius. I saw this on Twitter, which is psychotic. How could you even do that? Anyways, that's my point on Celsius. DN, do you have anything to add on this?
Yeah, I do. My hands down, my favorite financial writer, somebody I completely am in awe of his skills, is Matt Levine. He does the Money Stuff newsletter published by Barron's. And just yesterday, he sent out a newsletter titled Celsius Was Lying. And he just, with just the greatest skill, both in terms of writing and financial analysis, he takes you through every last bit of it in some of the most it's just an exquisite dissection of everything Alex Mashinsky and his minions pulled off during that time. Marvelous piece of writing. Again, that's Matt Levine's Money Stuff newsletter from yesterday, July 13th.
Please send it to us, or send it to me in a link after
I'll
the show.
forward it to you.
I would love, we'd love to showcase it, and put it in the show notes for the viewers. Walton,
absolutely, it's a must read. If you care at all about Celsius, you have to read this thing.
I look forward to seeing it in the show notes. Guys, I have one final story for REKT this week, and it's one that I really didn't like. I really didn't like reading this story this week. It gave me a little bit of the creeps. Why? Because potentially what's REKT here is people's privacy. Because it's not only enough that shitcoins have got a shitcoin. Now what they want to do is they want to monetize doxing people, right? They want to have the world's first on-chain intelligence exchange, buy and sell information on the owner of any blockchain wallet address anonymously via smart contract. Okay. And I saw a tweet, I think from Fluffy Pony, who, if you don't know, is I believe the inventor of Monero. Is that correct, Phil?
That is correct.
Certainly one of the kind of core devs over there, who I think was arrested and then let go at some point. I don't know. Like this guy's had a few run-ins himself, but he looks at he looked at this thing, and there was a. Oh, sorry. Let me share this little bit of information here. 1 sec. So, how did it work? Well, so we've got like bounties on intelligence, right? And how does it work? So you got to match the parties. Blah blah blah. Here we go. Buyers solicit intelligence by posting bounties, requesting intel on anything they'd like to know. Bounty hunters can claim these bounties by submitting intel in response to them. Any intel bought and sold is exclusively held by the acquirer for 90 days. And then it says it will be propagated to all users. This gives the purchaser time to extract as much alpha from the intel in the short term, whilst ensuring decentralization of an on-chain knowledge to the community over the long run. Blah blah blah, a load of nonsense, right? But what was Fluffy Pony's criticism? So Arkham continue. Our vision for the Arkham Intel Exchange is a decentralized intel-to-earn economy powered by smart contracts in which any sleuth can earn based on their skills and experience. This ushers in a new era of crypto with a much higher standard of transparency and knowledge, thereby eradicating the bad actors who are holding crypto back. To prevent spam, all bounty hunters must stake a small amount, which we slashed in the event their submissions are not approved. Fluffy Pony, the inventor of Monero, says this is such a poorly thought out idea that it is open to an obvious Sybil attack. The steps outlined here. Number 1, place a bounty for information. 2, respond with seemingly accurate submission from your own Sybil address. 3, read all the responses from bounty hunters and reject them all as invalid. Number 4, only approve your Sybil address submission. Number 5, pay the bounty to yourself, but benefit from all of the real info you collected. So essentially, you could crowdsource a bunch of information and only pay yourself for the most correct answer, or the one that you deem worthy of payment. So we've got a terrible system where some shitcoiners are trying to get people to pay to dox different people, and then it's Sybil attackable. Thoughts?
Yeah, I got a lot of thoughts on this. We did a clip. Pleb Underground has a clip on this that we did earlier in the week. Thank you very much for including it in the weekly, because that is an absolute shit show. So there's a couple of points I want to make on this one. So first of all, it has a shit coin. Okay. Like right there, it has. So if your Intel to earn platform is so good, if this service or product is so good, why can't it be monetized properly? Why wouldn't it? Because the reality is that it's not. It is a complete fucking scam. So it has a shit coin, okay? And then you go and you stake this shit coin. And the best part of this, the best part of all of this, is that they pay you in this shit coin. So literally, okay, so hold on. I'm going to back it up. So essentially the verification that they do, right? It's the trust me bro verification algorithm, because they have their own in-house verifiers. Okay, so you trust Arkham bro. Okay, so you trust them, and then on top of that, they pay you in the shit coin that they issue and control. What is this? Like, and you have these sad, I'm sorry to say this, but these sad simps that fall for this crap and think that like this is some type of worthwhile, we're innovating, look at us, we're building technology on the blockchain. Like, this is a fucking grift. Like,
isn't Arkham the name of the asylum in Batman? They're saying, okay, so we're a bunch of insane criminals, come and hang out and
get ripped off.
They sound, yeah. Is it run by a guy called the Joker? I'd love to know. If yeah,
it's definitely, you know
Come
what?
on.
It is definitely run by jokers. Okay, the what is this Miguel Morel guy?
It's not funny though, is it?
Hold on. Icing on the cake. He joined Mario Nawfal, right? The guy that literally has like a shitcoin incubator that uses Twitter for marketing. So he went on his space to essentially shill this Arkham crap. So this is all around absolute bullshit. Straight up, absolute bullshit. DNComply, have you seen anything about this? What are your thoughts?
I'm happy to say that I hadn't heard about this, but just hearing Walton describe it, I was immediately thinking, that sure sounds like there's going to be a shitcoin attached to that. And, that was going to be my first line of questioning, like, is there a shitcoin? Because if it is, then it's nonsense. Plus, I mean, just if you've been into Bitcoin for long enough, you can just sort of sniff out scams. And it's just man, there's just no end of hand waving to the brief little snippets I wrote about how this thing would work. There's nothing that clicks, at least Peter Thiel, if he's going to do something demonic, it's going to work, and there'll be some innovation to it. Whereas this is just like some bozo who just can't even think clearly about, about what's being launched. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, man, absolutely agreed. And this is just total crap. Walton, thank you so much, man. This was an awesome REKT segment.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff to look at. And yeah, as I like to say, and people are going to continue to get wrecked until self-custody gets respect. It's as simple as that. You'll get wrecked until self-custody gets respect. So seriously, not your keys, not your coins. Take custody. Please learn how to do so. Please treat your stacks if it's worth more than it actually is, because one day it may well be.
Most likely will.
And yeah, keep learning. Like it's work out what works for you. Try and build redundancy. And good luck.
Very well said. All right, guys, that wraps up REKT, and we are going to move it on over to the Hopium.
The Hopium.
The Hopium is brought to you by CryptoCloaks. Check them out, cryptocloaks.com. Use our affiliate link and use the code PlebUnderground for 5% off awesome 3D prints, like the 3D printed grenade that can fit 2 open dimes. Get the bigger one, and you can fit a signing device. That's cryptocloaks.com. Use our affiliate link and use the code PlebUnderground for 5% off. For the Hopium, we've got one story, and I think that this story is most likely enough. Here we go. I'm going to start it off with one of my tweets. Uh-oh. Now no one needs your shitcoin in their game either. Use cases disappearing fast, almost like Bitcoin was the only real thing all along. What am I talking about? Bitcoin rewards on Minecraft. This partnership makes it possible. So, got this tweet from Zebedee that Walton helped us with. And here we go. At Minecraft, meet Bitcoin. We've collaborated with PlaySatlantis to bring Bitcoin to your favorite game. That's right, Minecrafters. Look no further. You can own the corn. Payment processor Zebedee announced partnership with Bitcoin education company Satlantis. Over 150,000 sats will be rewarded to players daily. Reward payments will be fully processed on the Bitcoin network within the Minecraft platform. Minecraft players will have the option to join BTC's so-called mining pools, earn mining hardware, and even validate the network to earn block rewards. As in the real world, participants will receive these rewards every 10 minutes when a block is included on the blockchain. The partnership also aims to boosting. I think that this is the signal right here. Aims at boosting Bitcoin education by introducing players to these and other concepts. The BTC education company will allow players to purchase gift cards from Amazon, Walmart, Uber Eats, and other real-world companies. Dave Dineno, founder of Satlantis, added, our integration with Zebedee takes this to a whole new level by enabling instant Bitcoin rewards for players with tools to easily access and use their rewards inside the game. And again, more signal, or in the real world. That's right, because Bitcoin is not just contained to the ecosystem, the walled garden of your game. Finally, the partners clarified that they have zero affiliation with Mojang Studios, the company behind Minecraft. The BTC integration is made possible, as stated above, by using a modded or custom Minecraft server. Users can get more information on the BTC rewards by visiting Satlantis.net. Users must download the Zebedee app Zebedee app available for Android and iOS to collect the rewards. Now, let's put this into perspective, right? Like, why is this Hopium? I love the piece about the Bitcoin education because I do think that is the most important thing. But what's very important here is screen time and eyeballs, okay? And let's go take a look because, you see, Minecraft has some very interesting numbers, okay? So, how many people are playing Minecraft right now? There's approximately 500,000 to 800,000 on average that are playing Minecraft currently. Right now, there's 1.1 million people playing Minecraft. How many people are playing it daily? About 1 to 1.5 million people are playing Minecraft daily. And then finally, how many people playing Minecraft monthly? Okay, so last month, there was, and this was last month's calculation, 161 million total active Minecraft players. Okay, and this data is estimated. So guys, this is why it's Hopium. And this is something.
And who are those players? So I imagine they're quite young players. Like a lot of Minecraft players, like a single digit or double, or teenagers, right? Like there's young kids playing Minecraft, and so actually, I think that's why it could be slightly exciting.
Yeah. I exactly, man. You hit the nail on the head, right? You've got these younger players, okay, and they're being exposed to Bitcoin on a daily basis. And I can tell you this, right? It's the same thing like with an ad that you hear multiple times a day. It doesn't have to be long, okay? But the more exposure you have to it, the more it becomes automatically part of your thinking, okay? And this is something that advertisers and marketers understand when they're selling you products. So I think it's really important and really good, obviously, for Bitcoin adoption. And look, at the end of the day, I applaud, I'm applauding, obviously, Zebedee is a Bitcoin company. I'm applauding Satlantis. And you know what, even though Mojang Studios, maybe they don't want to be doing this, but maybe they can't stop it, or maybe, whatever it may be, I am going to applaud them too, because at the very least, right, it's Bitcoin and it's Bitcoin only. So it's not like you're grifting a whole bunch of people into some shitcoin that you own and control and distribute. So I think that this is actually a really good development, and this is going to be one of those things where immediately I don't think we're going to see the benefits from it, but I think 5 to 10 years down the line we are. Walton, thoughts, man?
I think I don't know, more and more integrations of Bitcoin is a good thing, right? Now, does it mean that a whole bunch of players suddenly go, oh, I'm going to use Bitcoin for everything? Not immediately. But it does get it in front of more eyes. And it does mean they're using that instead of some shitcoin. And I'd argue that all games currently have a shitcoin. Like there are. Yes. This is kind of why I almost stopped playing mobile games, is because I don't know. Essentially, you see every mobile game the same. It's like, so you do some activity and there's like a loop to it, and then you stack this thing, and then you do something else repeatedly, and then stack this thing, and then you use these things, and then you can do this thing repeatedly, and then you can stack this other thing, and it's basically just like a whole bunch of shitcoins, right? Like you just like clicking buttons and earning shitcoins, and having like bright colors and things flash at you, and like it. And so if that's using Bitcoin instead of a shitcoin, that's a good thing. But
yeah, Thunder
we'll see.
Games, by the way, right? We got to give a shout out to Thunder Games. They're Bitcoin only, but you're right. You know,
yeah. I spoke to a guy called Neil Woodfine the weekend, who's also launched some other new games company. I can't remember what game he said that they're launching with, but essentially some sort of like Discord server type thing where you can coordinate games. You're not, the games don't get hosted on this thing. It's just like it's like another layer on top of, I guess, a bit like Steam or Valve or something like this, where you could have conversations, and there's other kind of messaging and this sort of thing. It's that, but with a bit of with Bitcoin you can win. You can win Bitcoin by playing some particular game. But I think we'll see how this progresses. I don't know. The games industry do like to print their own money with in-game tokens, shitcoins, etc. And even when there are kind of trading things within the games, right? World of Warcraft, right. And apparently, this Neil guy was actually saying this some weird stat he was telling me. Apparently, the trading of Counter-Strike skins is a giant market. And I never knew, like I used to be a 1.6 player back in the day, and like Counter-Strike's a great game, but and in fact I think you can win sats playing Zebedee or using Zebedee with Counter-Strike. Anyway, I don't know. It's going to be a good thing, but it's not going to make Bitcoin get adopted by hundreds of millions of people tomorrow. In part because these kids haven't got any money, probably, and they're already like stealing too much money on their parents' credit cards for these games. Their parents aren't going to let them buy Bitcoin. Come on, come down.
Oh, I like that take. I like that perspective. All right, DNComply. We're gonna wrap up this segment with your comments. What are your thoughts?
Well, I in the macro, it's just anything that can get somebody their first bit of sats has to be a good thing. You're no longer a no coiner, so I guess that's good. When you showed the daily versus monthly numbers, that seemed really out of whack. I went back and looked at them. I don't think that it's like if the daily is going to be 1 million people, I would guess the monthly would be about 10 million or something like that. So something seemed really out of whack,
right?
No, but you might have some people that play
daily and you have 30 days in a month. Like you'd assume it's not going to be 161 million users.
Yeah, no, so it should have been.
I agree.
I would bet if there's 10 million daily, it's going to be, or 1 million daily, it's going to be like 10 million a month. There's people who play every day, and there's people who play once a month. It averaged about 10 million. So that seemed out of whack. I don't know what the heck that was doing there, but and then finally it's like I don't know. I mean, as happy as I'd be for somebody to be accumulating their first sats, really I think the most important way to get hyper Bitcoinization is to get people thinking about like making tangible investments, even if it's only 20 or 50 or $100 worth of Bitcoin, get as many people to get their foot in the door with like, thousands or tens of thousands of sats, not like 35 cents. But I mean, whatever. I mean, it's not the most earth-shattering news that's come along. But if it gets people to stop being no coiners, how could I be opposed?
Very well said. Very well said. And I do, back to Walton's point, right? I think it's good that it exposes younger players specifically to the Bitcoin ecosystem, right? They can learn the difference between Bitcoin and a shitcoin. So I do appreciate that. And guys, this wraps up Hopium, and it wraps up our weekly episode. DNComply, again, thank you so much for joining us on the show. If viewers want to find you, reach out to you, how can they do it? We're going to post the links obviously in the show notes, but for right now, how to let people know.
Well, I am DN as in do not, or Donald Nottingham comply. So DNComply.com.
D's nuts.
Yes, exactly. DNComply.com, and I'm also DNComply on Twitter, and that's pretty much the only internet activity I have at the moment. One of these days, I'll pull my head out of my ass and get onto Noster, but I've been busy with my other life. So.
Yeah. Absolutely awesome, man.
Good for you.
Exactly. Good for you. Enjoy life. Get out there. Touch some grass. This is fantastic. Guys, this was our show. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Help us fight the evil YouTube algorithm. And don't forget to check us out on our audio-only platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. If you want to stream us sats, check us out on fountain.fm. You can stream us sats through Breeze. Walton, how do we close this one out?
Fuckshitcoins.com. Please like and subscribe. We'll see you next week.
Very well said. Opt out of the trust me, bro financial system.